Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my review of Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows, the second and currently final instalment of the Robert Downey Jr. Jude Law Sherlock Holmes films, directed by Guy Ritchie. However, like I said at the start of the first film's review, there will be a third film coming in 2021, directed by another person, can't remember his name, but that's coming 2 years' time. Hopefully, fingers crossed it gets sorted by then. Hoping the fourth film, if there's going to be if the third film, because number 2 is inspired by The Final Problem. Hopefully, number 3, when it comes back after a couple of years, a few years away, or 10 years, give or take. But basically, if that one follows up from the end of this one, then that will hopefully see Colonel Sebastian Moran, who's in this film. We'll talk more about him later as the villain for that film, and then hopefully there'll be a fourth film. And I really want fourth film to be based on The Hound of the Baskervilles. Yeah, that's the most adapted one, but it would give Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law the opportunity to be Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson in a adaptation of The Hound of the Baskervilles, and they have the opportunity to go really dark with that one. And then we'll see if there'll be any more after that. Hopefully at least those two. But anyway, so Game of Shadows. Like I said, this story takes inspiration from The Final Problem, where it's Sherlock Holmes versus Professor James Moriarty, and the epic showdown between the two of them, which actually happens at the end. But before we'll get to that in a bit. So in the pre-title scene, we see Sherlock Holmes trying to prevent a bomb disaster that is to kill this professor guy. I think he's a plastic surgeon, I could be wrong. Being delivered a package by Irene Adler, once again played by Rachel McAdams. And while Sherlock is able to prevent the bombing, the guy is killed by a poisoned dart by Colonel Sebastian Moran, who's going to be popping up a bit more in the story, in the film. And Irene goes to see Moriarty, who is, at the end of the first film, is revealed to be who she's working for. By the way, Guy Ritchie played Moriarty in the first film. That was pretty cool. The director of the film played Moriarty there. In this film, they brought in Jared Harris, and he is great. Jared Harris is a great Moriarty, and he plays the character of how Conan Doyle may have envisioned him really brilliantly. I do prefer Andrew Scott's Moriarty, but he's a very different Moriarty to Jared Harris, and I think Harris has got the more sophisticated Cambridge professor traits of the character down, whilst Andrew Scott is more mad, a bit more insane, the criminal genius that can only be brought on by a madman, as opposed to someone who's just really clever. So yeah, but Harris, brilliant performance throughout the film, and he does a spectacular job of capturing the character. And sadly, however, Irene is killed by tuberculosis, being somehow gotten into her tea and poisoning her, and she dies. So, yeah, that's the end of her character. Sorry. Although she is rumoured to be in the third film, but I don't think there'll be. I think there'll probably be flashback or something, or a past adventure. So after the title card, we then see Watson is finally moving out of his house, as we saw parts of in the first film. He's moved out and he's come back to say hello, and he finds Sherlock entangled with the case of finding Moriarty, all the strands put together, and then they go out for Watson's stag night, because that's actually what they were here to do. And then at the stag night, what's revealed, Sherlock kind of forgot about it, so John goes gambling. Also there is Mycroft Holmes, played by Stephen Fry, and he's really great as well. I loved his line. He's all me, isn't he? When Watson's making his complaints towards Sherlock. And then Sherlock goes to visit this gypsy lady upstairs, played by Naomi Rupes, called Madame Sin. And it's revealed that someone is trying to kill her, presumably because her brother is working for Moriarty, and he may have accidentally let slip some information or something. Whilst he didn't purposely write some information, they're worried that she might be able to find him, so they try to kill her. Well, at least that's what I got from it. Anyway, so after the wedding with John and Mary's wedding, Sherlock goes to visit Moriarty on an invitation. That's where Moriarty reveals he's killed Irene, leaving Sherlock alone at a dinner date. That would have been nice, actually, seeing Irene and Sherlock on an actual date. That would have been a nice scene, but alas, the plot needs to kill the character off, so the plot kills the character off. So Sherlock then heads off on his quest to stop Moriarty, but Moriarty has sent people to try and kill John and Mary, so Sherlock tries to protect them, and he manages to get Mary off a train that these assassins are attempting to kill them on, and has her sent to, Mycroft also rescues her as well. Sherlock throws her off a bridge into a big lake or a big river, and then Mycroft collects her from there shortly afterwards. Sherlock and John then head towards the coast and then head to Paris. There's actually a really nice bit where Sherlock lets Irene's handkerchief float into the air as he's letting go, and I think that's where John realises what's happened as well. That's actually a really nice moment and a bit of a nice calm piece of calmness throughout all this action and heavy drama. It's really nice. Anyway, arriving in Paris, they're able to find Madame Sim after some slight difficulty with the gypsies, and then head to Paris to find René, Madame Sim's brother. They're too late, however, to stop a bomb explosion at a nearby hotel, as they accidentally think they need to go to the opera to try and stop a bombing there, but it turns out it was somewhere else. So, whoopsies. It then turns out that the bombing was made to look like, a bombing, but it was also to cover a assassination by gun. And this is something I brought up from the first film. They don't really say they're working out when they're actually at the scene. Sometimes they do, but not always. And later on, Sherlock revealed how he worked out the plan later on. Here we actually get some of the deductions from both him and John, where we also see the people doing them. Yeah, we saw a bit of that in the first film, but I think it's done a bit better here. I think so we actually see what has happened, and we get to understand what's happened and what's going on a bit better. And at the same time, it still keeps us in the dark about the main plan as well. Anyway, the trio, aided by some other gypsies, sneak across the French-German border by horse because the border's been closed due to the massive bombings, and France and Germany are at each other's throats due to all of these bombings. This is exactly what Moriarty wants. This is basically his plan, as Sherlock and John find out later. He wants to start a world war and supply the weapons and the bandages, and the medicine. He wants to create a world war so he can then supply stuff towards them. And that is a really good idea. This is 1891 where this film is set. So this is 23? Yeah. About 23 years until World War I officially starts. However, in the years building up to World War I, the countries of Europe and other countries across the world were at each other's throats. It just needed that one spark to cause a world war, and that's what we got in 1914, and that's what Moriarty's trying to do here, and for profit by the looks of it, and also because he can, I guess. So yeah, and what he's intending to do, the way he intends it, is for René to assassinate someone at this peace conference in Switzerland. So after a fantastic couple of scenes at the German weapons factory, and a fantastic chase scene through the forest, brilliantly shot and edited. I think they must have taken some inspiration from the TV series, as well as a little bit from Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 on the forest chase. Some brilliant filming and editing techniques and some really effective visual effects. I think all these scenes work really well, really brilliantly, and also we get to see the characters put into pain, like when Sherlock gets captured, Moriarty puts a fish hook, a big hook thing from weighing meat into his shoulder. That some pretty gruesome stuff there, but it's all kind of great. And John blowing up that watched the lighthouse tower, that is great as well. Big gun. I love Moran's response to that. Oh, that's just not fair. It's all great. So really great. And I love the name of the big gun that they fire at, try to firing at the gang. Time to introduce them to little Hansel. It's so brilliant. Anyway, so after epic scenes in Germany, we head to Switzerland for the peace conference, and this is where the final problem stuff influence gets involved, as they're trying to find Renee. Meanwhile, Sherlock goes to playing a game of chess with Moriarty, leaving John and Sim to take over. Eventually, they are able to find Renee and stop him from assassinating. I think he's supposed to be disguised as the French ambassador, and he's attempting to kill the German leader, but they're able to stop him. However, Moran assassinates him there and then, so there is no loose ends. And eventually, Sherlock and Moriarty have a fight. Well, no, actually, that's what Sherlock predicts the fight. That's his plan going through. That's another thing. I haven't mentioned this in my review. Throughout these two films, he's been planning how he's going to fight these guys, how he's planning this out. That's all really cool. I think that's the closest we get to the deduction stuff that we're more used to in the original films, apart from some of the bits in here. And also, I kind of enjoyed that earlier in this film, we saw cases where someone else or something else can interfere with this thing. And this time round, we got the two, both Sherlock and Moriarty, kind of working out together at the fight. But then Sherlock decides to change the game, and just instead of him being thrown off the banister by Moriarty, as is inevitable, he decides to chuck Moriarty off. Well, he decides to grab Moriarty and flung themselves back off the balcony. That's where the final problem stuff comes into, more or less, witnessed by John. And they both plummet to their supposed deaths. Or are they dead? As people will be aware, in adaptations of the final problem, or some of them anyway, it is hinted that Sherlock survived, as he would be brought back later on in the Adventure of the Empty House. So, yeah, and this film, as well as the TV episodes, The Reichenbach Fall, imply that Sherlock is not dead, and he will return in the next story. In the TV show's case, they thankfully took inspiration from the her house for the Empty Hearse. Here, hopefully, they'll do the Empty House-esque bit at the very start, at least, or earlier on, before moving on to the adventure. And I really like the bit where he puts a question mark at the end of the end. So, yeah, another great instalment from the Sherlock Holmes film series. Once again, great performances from Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law, and the chemistry between the two actors makes the duo partnership amazing, especially in this less of a mystery, more of a race against the clock to stop an evil man sort of story. Similarly, Naomi Rupert is great as Madame Sim, and Jared Harris as Moriarty. Stephen Fry also makes one of the best Mycroft Holmes, and Kelly Riley, like I said, I think she's better here as Mary than she was in the first film. Not that she was bad in the first film, I just prefer her in this film. Eddie Marsan and Rachel McAdams also have some good cameos in the film. They don't get much screen time, but they get some good cameos. And also, Colonel Sebastian Moran makes a pretty effective second main villain. I'm hoping he's going to come back for the third film as the main villain, like he was in the Empty House story. So that'd be really cool. And also, like that other gypsy guy that helped out a little bit and got John Scarf. He was a pretty good character. Yeah, this is a pretty fun film. I think this focuses more on the like I said, the race against the clock, stop this evil man character. It's a bit different for Sherlock Holmes, but you know what? That's fine. It can work a little bit differently. It doesn't have to be a mystery all the time. It does sort of have mystery embedded into it. It's racing to stop Moriarty, and I think, yeah, it works pretty well. Well, really well, and has some really great moments, such as most of the German most, if not all, of the German uh, weapons factory scenes, and there's some really great bits, even bits where Sherlock's kind of gets some stuff wrong, where he goes to the wrong place. And I think the action also really works well here. There doesn't seem to be too much focus on spectacles as much in the first one. Oh, there is, but I meant doesn't overshadow parts of the Sherlock lore. I think it's able to include parts of the Sherlock lore into the film, and I think it works really well. I do think the first one is better, but I think this one comes very close. I think they're both almost pretty equal on footing. I think the first one's just slightly better as a story, but I think this one works really well as well. And also, I think it captures, despite being a bit different to the usual Sherlock stuff, does capture a bit more of the Conan Doyle stories a little bit more into the film, without having to be any less spectacle or action packed as the first film. And I do enjoy the when Sherlock's working out here how he's going to stop people, how we're now having alternative versions of that, or someone else coming into it to kind of screw stuff up or change something and make something a little bit different. I actually watched an extra on the DVD at one point where one of the producers saying for the third film they might go through some might explore Sherlock going through alternative things where someone might interfere with it. That sounds like a really good idea. I hope they do follow that up. So on the whole, Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows is a brilliant sequel to 2009 Sherlock Holmes. I think it's a great film, as well as a great Sherlock Holmes film. I think it takes some of the elements from the stories that the first film didn't really do that well and makes them really good. Although I think, and whilst the story is a bit different, I don't think it's quite as good as the first, but I still think it's pretty strong, and they succeeded in doing something quite different. Not completely perfect, but definitely a brilliant film. And once again, I think the best thing about both films is the partnership between Downey Jr. and Jude Law as Holmes and Watson. Also, brilliant, once again, another amazing music score by Hans Zimmer. So, I'm going to give Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows a 9 out of 10. Another brilliant film. I think the first film is slightly better, but I think this one is also really, really great. I won't be doing a rank of these films. I could have done I was thinking of doing a mini ranking, which is a very short ranking for things that are only 2 or 3 things, whilst the proper ranking is usually for 4 or more. Maybe sometimes 3. However, because there will be a third film coming, it may not be that pointful to do it now, and actually I'll wait till December 21, January 22, that's 2021, 2022, to do a proper ranking or proper mini ranking of the trilogy. But what I'll say here, that I think the mini ranking here, number 2 would be A Game of Shadows, and number 1 would be Sherlock Holmes 2009. But yeah, hopefully I will do a proper ranking or mini ranking after Sherlock Holmes 3 comes out in 2021. December of 2021. So hopefully they'll be able to start filming next year if they haven't already. Woo! So anyway, that's it from me. Thank you for watching this review, and also thank you for watching these Sherlock Holmes film reviews from the Robert Downey Jr. Jude Law ones. There might be other Sherlock Holmes films from before and after coming up later on. I will also be reviewing the Sherlock TV series with Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman later down the line. I've done series from the main channel. I will have to redo it. Probably redo it like I am doing some redoing some Doctor Who reviews from 2017 onwards, 16, 17 onwards. But series 1 to 3 and Abominable Bride, the series 1 to 3 and Abominable Bride certainly need doing. Anyway, so that's it from me. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel. But it would give Downey Jr. and Law their Hound of the Baskervilles. And Sherlock is able to prevent the death of this guy in a bombing, but if at all. But anyway, so after the the gang. Anyway, so the trio, aided by the other gypsies, and yes, once again another great installment. Not completely perfect, but certainly a very brilliant. Not completely perfect, but definitely a well-deserved